Hello everybody and welcome to the chart show. I'm so excited. What a brilliant innovation a chart show is on fan content, where we count down the 10 best players of the week for Manchester United. Obviously we're taking into account the Chelsea game and the game against Sheriff, so 2 games. And the way it works is look, last week's number 1 is unlikely to drop out completely of the top 10 because that's not really how it works in the old-fashioned chart shows. But we have got 3 new entries, which means we've got 3 people who have dropped out the top 10 completely. And let's see who is going to be this week's number 1. It's been really hard this week. Can't wait to see your comments because I had to rewrite the top 10 4 or 5 times because I kept forgetting about a couple of players. We've got it. We've got it right. This is the definitive top 10 this week. And in at number 10, he's last week's number 8. He's definitely shithouse of the week. It's definitely Anthony. And by shithouse of the week, we don't mean he's bad. We mean he's just really wound people up with the what I call ring of roses skill now, because everybody fell down in a bitterness. So ring of roses for Anthony, and they all fall down. The bitter prats. Yeah, I mean, look, on the pitch, it's not been a great week for Anthony, I've got to say. I think that against Chelsea, he was okay, and he was only on 45 minutes against Sheriff, and he was okay. So a bit of a drop-off with Anthony. He retains his place in the top 10. I don't think he's playing badly, not if you compare him to like somebody like Sancho who's out the team completely. I think this is just normal behaviour for a player that is brand new to the team. Obviously, he scored those 3 goals in his first 3 Premier League games, and I think it will be... With a flair player, it's going to be up and down. He's still getting used to things. He's having to get used to the way the media works here, isn't he? You know, with the criticism about his skills. But he's very, very, very confident, and you want that in a flair player, and we don't want to lose that. So I think it's great the way the fans have reacted to this, protective of our winger, of our player, and his attitude is spot on in relation to his teammates and his work ethic. And yeah, I'd put him in as this week's number 10. It's competitive. That's good. Actually, I've got a joint number 9 this week. So joint number 9 this week is a bit of a cheat because a joint number 9 means that there's 11 players in the top 10, and I've sort of bottled in it away. But yeah, I really couldn't kick somebody out. So I've gone with 2 people in at number 9 who I think are in the same spot here. I can't split them. So Ronaldo is in at number 9. He was out of the top 10 last week, obviously, for his antics against Spurs. He's back in. Didn't play against Chelsea, but he's back in at number 9 for his performance against Sheriff. He got his goal. I thought his overall game and attitude was a lot better than we've seen in weeks. There was less frustration. There was more focus. There was more of a smile on his face. I loved him walking off the pitch with Garnacho with an arm round the shoulder. That's the sort of Ronaldo we want to see for however much longer it's going to be, whether it's January, the end of the season. So I think it should be encouraged. So Ronaldo would be number 9. And joint number 9 with him, I'd have Marcus Rashford, who, let's remember, before Sheriff had missed, I think he should have had 7 goals in his last 4 games. He'd had 0. Missed a big chance against Chelsea again. Got subbed off with 10 minutes to go when we're looking for a goal. I think that was quite telling. Didn't have a great game against Chelsea. And then against Sheriff, he came on at half-time and really made a big difference. I thought it was a really good performance. It was interesting to see him playing off Ronaldo. Scored a very unlike Rashford goal, header in the box, good movement. So, yeah, I think a bit of a mixed week for Rashford, but ends it on a positive. And we saw a different side to Rashford. We saw some development of Rashford. So him and Ronaldo would be my number 9s this week. Joint number 9s, first time we've had that. New entry at number 8. I suppose at this point I should mention who the people who've dropped out of the top 10 are. Fred, obviously didn't really play against Chelsea or didn't really do much against Sheriff. Did he come on against Sheriff? I don't even remember. So Fred has dropped out the top 10. It's very competitive. That's nothing against Fred. Varane's dropped out the number 10. Obviously, he got injured against Chelsea. So, unfortunately, Varane drops out the top 10. And De Gea has dropped out the top 10. And again, I think with De Gea, it's just one of those things where he shouldn't be in the top 10. Not because he's performed badly, but because the keeper isn't really having to do anything. And therefore, the 10 outfield players are doing things. So, De Gea drops out the top 10 for the first time this season. And he's unlucky, but you'll see why. Because there are better performances out for outfield. And look, the goalkeeper shouldn't be in the top 10. If the goalkeeper's in the top 10, we're not playing as well as we need to be. So hopefully we won't see De Gea in the top 10 anytime soon, because if he comes back in the top 10, it means he's been involved in the game. In at number 8 is a new entry. It's Garnacho. Look, I'm not going to rewrite history and pretend it was vintage, amazing, superb football from Garnacho on Thursday, but I thought it was a good performance. And I think he was thrown in ahead of Sancho and Alanga, obviously based on a good training week. I would start him against West Ham. I think he was raw at times. I think he overplayed things at times, but he had that fullback on toast numerous times. His link-up play was good. His confidence was good. And I think it's something to build on. And I think it was a very good performance for Garnacho. And he did get your man of the match as well. So, yeah, in at number 8, well-deserved. And hopefully we're going to see more of the lads. Brilliant. Absolutely superb. Victor Lindelof is in at number 7. I think he deserves this. He's not going to have the glamour of a Rashford or a Garnacho. Of course, he's a centre-back. But that Varane injury happened very relatively early in the second half against Chelsea. He came in, he was steady, and he was very, very good again against Sheriff. And if you think back even before that, the Everton game, he came in, we had no Varane, he was very, very good in that. I think Lindelof's been a bit of an unsung hero, steady Eddie, over the last few weeks. And look, he probably will lose his spot against West Ham tomorrow. And I don't think he deserves to do that. And I think he does deserve his place in the top 10 this week, because I suspect that next week he might be out of it, because I don't think he'll play in the next 2 games, unless I've completely misread the fact that I think he'll bring Maguire back in for height. So I think Lindelof, well deserving over the last few weeks of being in our top 10. And this week as well. So this week's number 7 is Victor Lindelof. He's not put a foot wrong. I like the way he brings the ball out from the back. I like the way that he passes the ball. His concentration levels have been a lot better than they have been, maybe the last couple of years. So Victor Lindelof, to me, deserves to be number 7 this week. Number 6 this week is Delo, who holds his position as number 6. Well, what can I say about Delo? He scored on Thursday night. He got the goal just before half-time. Key goal. Really good header as well from a corner. I mean, these are strings to Delo's bow. It's not something you would normally expect. He is good in the air. He's very physical, and it's an aspect to his game that people probably don't appreciate. So getting up and scoring a corner is not the sort. You probably don't expect Delo to score anyway. But if he is going to score, you expect he's probably going to hit it from the edge of the box with his right foot. To score from a header, and a good header, I think you could score that sort of goal against anybody. It wasn't lucky. It was good movement. It was a good cross. He's been a part. I think he's played so much football as well. It was nice to see him getting subbed off for Malacia and getting a bit of a breather in the second half against Sheriff. But again, against Chelsea, I thought he was very solid. He had a good game against Chelsea, and I think after a bit of a wobble where he's probably been overplayed, and I think a couple of weeks ago there was a bit of a wobble. He's back to what he was doing in the first few weeks of the season, which is very progressive, energetic, reliable right back whose improvement from last season is remarkable, and clearly a player that's really being rewarded by decent coaching from Ten Hag and has responded to it. And a very good week for Delo. And don't forget the goal. So 100% deserves to be in at number 6 this week. Again, dropping one place, Bruno Fernandes, number 5 this week. This could be a controversial one. I still think there are people out there that don't appreciate Bruno and think that he's not performing well. But I actually think in the first half against Chelsea, he played really, really well. I think everybody fell away in the second half. And I think Bruno suffered from being moved to the left when Fred came on in the second half for Sancho. I do feel that Bruno drifted out of the game there, whereas in the first half against Chelsea, I felt he played really well. And, it wasn't necessarily his fault that he didn't... that we weren't winning deservedly. We should have been winning in that first half against Chelsea, and obviously we went in at 0-0. So I thought he had a really good 45 minutes against Chelsea. Drifted out of the game on the wing when we made that tactical change with Fred coming in for Sancho and Bruno pushed out to the left. And then against Sheriff, I felt that it was the other way round. I think that in the first half he was playing as the number 10. A few sort of impatient shots from Bruno, edge of the box. It was becoming a bit of an average performance from Bruno in the first half. Then second half, he gets pushed out to the right wing, and you think, oh God, he's going to be out of the game like he was against Chelsea. And I think on the right wing, and I've seen Bruno play there. He used to play there for Sporting a bit, and he's done it for Portugal, I believe, as well. Bruno's got, and I was talking about this, Bruno's got a brilliant delivery off the right. We don't get him out on the right because he plays very central, close to the striker a lot. But if you can get Bruno with space on the right-hand side, he's got a wonderful cross on him. And it was no surprise to me that we scored that goal that Ronaldo scored. I know he didn't score the header, but he followed it in. He probably should have scored the header, but the cross was absolutely pinpoint by Bruno. And I think in the second half, although it's not his normal role and he just moved to the right, judging him as a right midfielder, I thought he had a really good half against Sheriff. So, yeah, I think Bruno, all right, he's dropped a spot, but I think he holds on to top 5. And look, the thing for me about Bruno is its consistency. I think he was consistently quite average when we gave him the new contract for 6 months. And I think over the last couple of weeks, he's been consistently good. Not a full 90-minute performance, definitely not. But there's been, a half against Sheriff where I thought he was very good and a half against Chelsea where he was very good. So, look, I'm happy with Bruno at the moment. He just needs to keep improving. Another new entry this week. In fact, we've got Eriksen in at number 4. Obviously, Eriksen was not in last week because he didn't play against Spurs, did he? And I don't think he played in the previous game either against Newcastle. I think he came on against Spurs, but he didn't make the top 10. This week, he's back into the team. Obviously, he started against Chelsea. That was the big call against Chelsea. Should Fred have kept his place from the Spurs team? Eriksen came in. Ten Hag sort of changed his mind on sticking with a winning team. Obviously, Eriksen's fundamental to Ten Hag, and he is a player that gets picked regardless of whether the team's played well the week before. It was justified. We were brilliant for 35 minutes against Chelsea. We pinned them in at Stamford Bridge the same way that we pinned in Spurs. So it wasn't just because of Fred. We could do it with Eriksen, which was encouraging. I thought he played really, really well. And I thought he was very good against Sheriff as well. It's that understated role that Eriksen does. He's not the Bruno. He's not the number 10. He is basically the link between the midfield and the attack. And he does it really, really well. Obviously, as I said, against Chelsea, he was massively part of the press as well. And he complements Casemiro so well. Going from McFred to Casemiro and Eriksen is, as I say, the step up is absolutely huge. And Eriksen is clearly not just to Ten Hag, but the fans. He's a fundamental part of Manchester United. He's the foundation of that team. And you could put the captain's armband on if you want. I mean, he's that important to the team. And I think Ten Hag has proved that this week, that he'll change a winning team to bring Eriksen back in. So a really good week from Eriksen. He's straight back into the chart show. And he's in at number 4 this week. And it's thoroughly deserved. So well done to Eriksen. Our highest climber this week, in at number 3. He was last week's number 10, sort of finding his feet, back in with a couple of decent performances. This week it's gone up levels again. I think he deserves massive applause, and this is what you want when you lose your place, deservedly, and you get your chance back, and you come in and you perform and you're consistent. And I think Luke Shaw really epitomises and is symbolic in a very different way. I think Delo this season's been symbolic, starting the season, development, better, really deserves the praise he's getting. I think we've got players in this squad now that you can look at for different circumstances and go, they're the role model. And I think Luke Shaw is the role model at the moment for players who find themselves out of the team and then can get back in. And funnily enough, I think Malacia should look at Luke Shaw and go, look, there's a player who started the season badly, lost his place. Everyone thought he'd be out of the team for a long time. People talking about selling him. People talking about him not going to the World Cup. Malacia has a couple of bad games. Luke Shaw deservedly gets his chance, and he's grabbed it. He's grabbed it. And I think he looked a little bit rusty when he first came in, but he's getting better and better by the game. And suddenly, he would be my starting left-back in the World Cup for England, and he is Manchester United starting left-back. And let's not forget, the reason he's in at number 3 this week is because he's played really, really well. Chelsea, really good game. Delightful cross to Casemiro to get us back into the game late on. And obviously against Sheriff, he came on in the second half and he provided that beautiful cross on Rashford's forehead, which got us the second goal. So, and defensively, the energy levels from Luke Shaw when he's on it are unbelievable anyway. The ability to get back and forth, he's like a yo-yo. He's relentless. When Luke Shaw's on it, he's one of the best left-backs in Europe. When he's not on it, he's not one of the best left-backs in our squad. So, I think Luke Shaw's always been a divider. I've always been a big fan of Luke Shaw. I'll call it out when he's playing badly, and I have done. But when he's on it, and that's what we want, when he's on it, he's our best left-back, and he's a massively important player for us. And what I do like about Luke Shaw as well is he's finally shown that he can play well without Harry Maguire, because Maguire and Shaw had this relationship where they did really, really well together going into the Euros and the months before the Euros. And that was when Luke Shaw was Roberto Carlos. That's when he was getting lots and lots of credit. Last season, Maguire was poor, Luke Shaw was poor. This season, we start the season, Maguire is poor, Luke Shaw is poor against Brighton and against Brentford. But funnily enough, he wasn't playing with Maguire next to him. He had Martinez next to him against Brentford, didn't he? Until he was subbed. But Luke Shaw's had to come back into that team and stand on his own 2 feet. It's not the United. This is a different team, is what I'm trying to say. When Luke Shaw's played well for United in the past, it's not the same as playing well for United now. That was a different manager and a different back four. He's now playing well as an individual, Luke Shaw, with Martinez on his left, Casemiro in front of him, and Erik ten Hag as his manager. And that's the sign of a good player, because he's basically like a new signing. I know he's not, but the surroundings are not the same. You don't have the familiarity of players that you know. You're playing with different players. So even more credit to Luke Shaw for that, and he deserves that number 3 spot this week. Which brings us to number 2, and he holds on to number 2. It's Lisandro Martinez. I mean, the domination of being in the top 2 by Martinez since we brought the chart show back has been outstanding. I spoke this morning about the body check on Jorginho, the video of that going round. I mean, he just gets it. He resonates with the fan base home and away so much. He's not a Man United fan. He's not from the youth team. And these sort of players reflect to me why sometimes our obsession with young players and youth players, you know, that's what we are. That's what Manchester United's about. But it doesn't mean that you can't bring a player into this club who's got nothing to do with the club, who can be better than anything that is. I mean, you know, Sir Alex Ferguson had no touch point with Man United and became our greatest ever manager. We've had people like this in the past, you know, Patrice Evra and Nemanja Vidic and the Herrera. You know, in recent times, you can go back a lot further than that with people like Roy Keane and Paul Ince and Steve Bruce and many others who aren't Manchester United youth products and aren't even Manchester United fans, but they get bought to the club and they instantly have this attachment to the club, this passion that burns inside them, that they'll do anything for the club, and the fans just latch onto that, and this relationship is born in a very short period of time. It takes years to have what Martinez has at the moment, and he's done it in weeks. He's just completely and utterly, his personality just jumps out at you, and I don't think it's by design, it's just who he is. Ajax fans loved him. I've spoken to European lad about this and other Ajax fans, and the reason they were so gutted to lose him is because he had that relationship with Ajax that he's now got with Man United fans. And if he leaves Man United to go to Real Madrid will have the same thing. The guy just is that person, and when he puts the shirt on, he becomes that shirt. He becomes that identifiable player on the pitch that fans want. They want to see in a player what they are: passion, desire, never say die, and talent. And Martinez just reflects that. So consistent, remarkable really for a brand new signing coming from the Eredivisie, where not a lot of people knew a lot about him. And let's be honest, so many people knew so little about him that they were saying he'd be too small, etc. So he didn't come in with a big reputation, but he's definitely got one now, and he's been absolutely fantastic. Which means, again, this week's number 1, I think it's 3 weeks at number 1 now, and he just can't be toppled. His name is Casemiro, and he can't be toppled. I think Martinez is pushing him hard. I think Luke Shaw's had a good week, but you've got to be elite to be number 1 on the chart show. And I know of a couple of players who watch it, and you should be showing it to the rest of the squad, because this is important. This is, you know, I know it's a bit of fun, but, it does take a bit of thought process, and most of the comments will have different ideas about who should be where, but ultimately, I don't think you can argue with the top 2 for the last few weeks. It's Casemiro and Martinez, and there's a reason for that. They are consistently superb, and, you know, I'm sure Casemiro probably isn't even aware of the United Stand chart show, but and it doesn't stack up with Champions Leagues and everything else, but he's been Man United's top player for the last 3 weeks in the chart show, and he's done it again. And I want to change the number 1. You want to have different number 1s, but at the moment, we'll remember this in May. Can anybody stay number 1 for 3 weeks in a row? Maybe Casemiro will be number 4 it'll be 4 weeks in a row next week. But why is he number 1 this week? Because he's just so consistent. He's so consistent in that role. He protects the back four. He takes he's on the ball so much as well. We weren't used to this. You know, McTominay, Fred, they don't want the ball, and we have to counter attack because we can't play through the midfield then. Casemiro's on the ball all the time. He wants the ball. He's conducting that midfield. He's got a great relationship with Eriksen. He's really settled into that team. He's really respected, which you'd expect. But beyond that, you know, maybe without what I'm about to mention, maybe Casemiro might have been toppled by Martinez this week. It would have been touch and go. But that goal against Chelsea, when we're 1-0 down, that header, delightful cross by Luke Shaw, but the leap, the precision, the time of the game, the celebration, the deserved points, that goal was epic. I've watched it a few times this week. It's an absolutely fantastic moment in our season, and that's the CDM. He's the CDM scoring the goal to get us a deserved point at Chelsea. That goal's huge. If that's Ronaldo or Rashford, we're talking about it all week. It can't be understated how important that goal was, and that's from Casemiro. And that point was deserved, and it nearly got taken away from us. So, star of the week, Casemiro for me. #1 this week. So make sure you smash a like on the video for Casemiro, because it was a huge, huge goal. And that concludes our chart show this week. And I hope you've enjoyed it, because I certainly have. It's I went through a few drafts. I forgot about Garnacho on one of them. But look, a big shout out to De Gea as well. He's not in the top 10 because he's a bad player. He's not in the top 10 because he's a goalkeeper who really hasn't had that much to do in the last couple of weeks. So, you know, let's hope De Gea stays out the top 10, because that means we're doing well at the other end, certainly. Thanks everyone for watching. Take care. I'll speak to you all in a bit.